Millions of people died in the Holocaust.
But some lived, including a Phoenix woman who survived the Nazis' most notorious death camp, Auschwitz, and her husband with her story.
The images are still hard to imagine. The Holocaust, 6 million Jewish people killed. Some survived. Magda Willinger remembers all of it.
You can't forget. You can't forget those things. It's so traumatic.
Like countless victims, Magda suffered unimaginable loss. She survived the Nazi death camps and now spreads a message of tolerance by retelling her story.
It's emotional every time I do it.
She grew up in a small town in what was then Czechoslovakia. Her mother and father had a grocery store. The family of 5 lived a comfortable life.
All that changed in 1939 when we were invaded by Hungary with the support of Germany, of Hitler.
The family business was taken away. Her father forced to work for the Nazis, who were marginalizing Jews.
Gradually, things got worse. We were no longer allowed to go to public school. In 1942, we were ordered to wear a yellow star on our clothing, blatantly recognizing us as Jews.
With little money, her mom had to get creative to survive.
She would go to a town where she knew that there was a soap maker. She would buy some soap and bring it back and sell it at a profit, which was really black marketing. But that's the only way she could feed her family.
Magda's father would occasionally be allowed to visit the family at home, but eventually those visits stopped, and the family was moved to a Jewish ghetto.
We were not provided any provisions. We were scrounging for food. The only good thing was that the entire family was together.
But that did not last. Soon, the family was loaded onto crowded train cars for a 2-day journey. Destination unknown.
When the train would stop, we would beg for some water, but the only answer we got was shooting in the air, letting us know that we better calm down. And most people didn't know what was going on. The only time when we arrived and the doors were unbolted, there were signs. Birkenau, Auschwitz.
At the sprawling, notorious concentration camp, the Nazis' largest killing center, guards wasted no time.
Came up to me and asked me, how old are you? And I was 15 and a half. He said, no, you're 18. Tell him you're 18 years old.
That guard saved her life. Magda and her mom were grouped together. Her grandmother, 7 and 2-year-old sisters put in a separate group. As they approached a Nazi doctor, the doctor didn't say a word.
He just pointed left, right, that's all.
Magda and her mom were sent in the opposite direction of her relatives. She never saw them again. Other prisoners would later explain what the Nazis were up to at Auschwitz.
They were telling us what was going on. Don't you know what's going on here? Can't you smell the burning flesh? And we still would not accept that. I mean, how could that be happening? A cultured nation like Germany, you know, how could that be happening? But the longer you stayed in Auschwitz, the more you realized that that's exactly what was going on.
When the Russians liberated Auschwitz, the horrors of the Holocaust were fully realized. Piles of glasses, shoes, and clothing, all that remained of the more than 1.1 million people systematically murdered there.
In the camp, there were times when I was like a zombie. I just didn't want to see or hear anything. And that was a survival method, just to survive.
Thankfully, Magda and her mother only stayed at Auschwitz for just 4 weeks. They were moved to a work camp where they spent the rest of the war. Once they were freed, they made their way back to their hometown, but there wasn't much left.
We walked to our previous home where we lived and found it completely abandoned, and even the door jambs and the window jambs were gone.
One item was recovered, a complete photo album found by a relative in the trash.
That's where we found things, in the trash.
That's where this photo was found. Magda as a young girl in front of her family home before the war. Today, 70 years later, Magda lives at the Terraces Senior Living Community in Phoenix. When the war ended, she and her mom followed relatives to the U.S. She moved to the Valley from Chicago in 1956. Her late husband started a sod business, and she wrote a book with her mom called The Enduring Spirit.
I'm very grateful to be in this country where I had a good life.
She's never been back to Auschwitz or her hometown and doesn't want to. Instead, focusing on talking to young students here in the Valley, knowing the history books can't compare to her real-life story of loss and survival. I'm Andrew Hasbam, Fox 10 News.
Magda's father actually survived the war but died from an illness shortly after. He never knew that his wife and one of his children were still alive.